several weeks of our time together, it is that regardless of the circumstances, we are still on assignment. The fact that we are now dealing with the pandemic and now we're dealing with all of this uncertainty does not change the fact that God still birthed you and I with a purpose. There is still an assignment that the Lord has placed on each and every one of us. And I want to spend some time, we want to spend some time in these next couple of meetings together dealing with when anxiety attacks your assignment. Listen, it has been astutely asserted. It has been wisely worded and profoundly proposed that worry is like a rocking chair. It keeps you busy, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Big Mama used to tell us that. And that is to simply say that chronic and compulsive worrying can cripple your capacity to cope with life's crisis, life's circumstances, and life's unavoidable catastrophes. Even the heaven bound are not immune to life's hiccups and happenings, which may explain why worry ranks among the devil's most effective weapons, even against believers today. The truth is, we spend much of one of God's greatest gifts to us, the gift of time, the gift of opportunity, consumed with worry about things that really aren't worth worrying about ultimately. I mean, come on, somebody. We worry about finances. We're spending our time worrying about family. We worry about friends and relationships. We worry about employment. We worry about the economy. We worry about the stock market. We worry about our retirement portfolios. We worry about sickness. We worry about health. We just worry. We worry about the fact that we worry too much. We even worry about the fact that we worry too little. And for some of us, when there's nothing left to worry about, we worry about why we don't have anything to worry about. And we worry about the fact that sometimes that something worth worrying about is about to come. We worry about forgetting to worry. We worry about worry. We just worry. And that is the temptation that is treated in this selected text. Now, when you pick up the words of Jesus here in verse number 24, he's delivering what is known as the Sermon on the Mount. A sermon, really, this was, for lack of a better term, a real coming out sermon. It was delivered with the intent of helping his listeners take a radical step forward in their relationship and their understanding of God and their relationship with their Heavenly Father. In the verses preceding our text, Jesus has spent some time talking about the people's relationship with the material world and how that impacts their mind, body, and so he tells them that they should stop worrying about stuff, that their focus and their desire should not be on things below, but things above, that they ought to be satisfied with what they have, that they should stop worrying over what others have and what they don't have. Stop worrying about how they measure up to other folk, because all worry does is kill and do harm to the soul. And so we spend some time talking about how you and I, how they relate to the world and material things, how that impacts us in our relationship with God, how that impacts us mind, body, and soul. And so recognizing the agonizing and the demoralizing effects of worrying over stuff, Jesus comes back and he says in verse number 24 of our text, he says that no man or no one can serve two masters. For either we will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. Is that in your Bible? Now listen, if you're paying attention, what ought to immediately leap from the page is the undeniable, incontestable, irrefutable force and divinity of Jesus' statement. I want you to pay attention. Jesus does not say that serving two masters is hard to do. Jesus does not say that it takes time to learn and to conquer to perfection the art of serving two masters. Jesus does not say that you can that it can be acquired with time or experience or with enough effort and enough skill. You can figure out and learn how to serve two masters. No, Jesus says flat-footedly that it is impossible. No man can serve two masters, full stop. There is no discussion. There is no extended conversation. It is impossible for one person to serve two masters. That's a good place for me to stop and tell somebody who's listening, somebody who's watching, that you might as well stop now. You might as well give up now trying to serve two. Jesus has made it fundamentally clear that no person can serve two masters. God has not wired us to do that. God has not equipped us to do that. God has not enabled us to do that. It is impossible. It is incontestable. It is irrefutable. Jesus says we cannot serve two masters. Now listen, it's worth pointing out that the phrase two masters, it carries the idea of two Roman slave owners who required total allegiance. It has a reference to slave owners that had the absolute rights of life and death. It carried the idea of a Roman slave owner that possessed ownership over two slave owners that possessed ownership of the same one slave at the same time. It carries the idea of Roman slave owners who both required total and complete exclusive allegiance to the same one servant or slave. The word hate there and love, the words devotion and despise, they speak to the fact that from a slave owner's perspective, that in that day, no decision that a slave owner, no decision that a slave made with regard to a master could completely benefit one or could benefit one at all if it was targeted toward another. In other words, no decision a slave with two masters made completely benefited or honored both at any one time. He's saying that it is under that construct, in that context, it is literally impossible for a slave to be completely heart loyal to two masters at the same time. And so when you put all of that together, Jesus is communicating the idea here that if they are serving time with one master, they are severing ties with another. That's what Jesus is trying to help them and help you and I by extension understand, that it is impossible to honor and benefit both. If you are serving with one master, you are severing your ties with the other. You cannot spend time with one without severing your tie with another. I want you to understand, if you are spending devotional time adoring and honoring the world, you are at the same time simultaneously severing your ties with the Lord. When you are spending your time in love and honoring things of the world, you are at the same time dishonoring the person of God. Are you understanding what I'm saying? He says you cannot serve two masters. And so as a point of clarity, Jesus says that the two masters that one slave cannot serve simultaneously are God and material wealth, gain, or profit. In this context, the other master is anything or anyone that is loved more than God. It's anything that you desire more than God. Anything that you treasure more than God, anyone that you trust more than God, anyone, anything that you enjoy more than God, God is saying that is your other master. You're telling God that is the competition that God has. Whatever it is that you love and admire, desire and treasure more than God. If I had a little time, I would tell you that you can tell how much you treasure what and how much you treasure who by how you spend your time. How you budget your time. Now people have more free time than they've ever had before. But don't let the Lord follow you around your house. Y'all ain't saying nothing. I know I better. But don't let the Lord follow you around your house, because with all of the time that we have now, the disposable time, the question has to be asked, how much of that time are we really spending getting into right position with God, delving into exploring a deeper relationship with God, finding out what pleases God, finding ways to minister to the people of God and honor God. You find out how much you really love what and who you love by how you budget and prioritize your time. That's a good place to tell you to stop and tell you that we serve God when we put Him first in our lives, when we place Him first in our mind, when we connect everything that we do in life to our relationship with God. We serve God when we filter everything about us through our relationship with Him. That's how we honor God in this world. That's how we honor God in the face of trial, in the face of adversity. It is when we filter everything that we experience, everything that we encounter, everything that we are through our relationship and the person of God. And it is when our complete devotion is taken off of the Lord that we move Christ off of His throne and out of our hearts and make masters of the created instead of the creator. Listen, if I had a little more time, I'd keep going and I'd tell you that what makes the created such a convenient and dangerous master is the compromise it's willing to make to have you. The created, I said the choice is either your master will be your creator or the created. Now I've come by to suggest to you that the created is such an attractive, it is such an alluring master because of the compromise that is willing to make to have you. The created does not demand exclusive rights or loyalty. While the creator demands total trust, the created is willing to ride second chair if it means just having you some of the time. Y'all, yeah. If God is your main master, your stuff don't mind being your side piece. Let me give you the Oak Cliff translation of what I'm trying to help. What Jesus is saying here. If God the Father, if God the Savior is your main master, your stuff don't mind being your side piece if it means it has your love and your affection and is the object of your desire some of the time. Y'all ain't talking back to me here. The created does not demand exclusive rights or loyalty. Are you understanding what I'm saying? It's willing to ride second chair and be the second. All it wants is a spot in the rotation. But the preaching point is that any attempt to divide your loyalty results in the undermining of your trust in and your love for the Lord. In other words, the Lord can't trust a divided mind. The Lord can't trust, come on somebody, you can't trust a servant that'll serve one master 1 minute, y'all ain't talking back to me, and show up at your house the next. Come on somebody. I don't trust a delivery driver at Papa John's, y'all ain't talking back to me, to help me over at Pizza Hut. There's a conflict of interest there. I can't trust you. I can't trust somebody that works for the competition. Are you understanding what I'm saying? With my stuff, with my interests. And so Jesus is helping us understand here that no man can serve two masters. Even if you could, there would be a breakdown of trust because God can't trust you. The master can't trust you when your heart and your mind are divided. Are you understanding what I'm saying? And so then trying, to hurry up, then tying everything together, tying what Jesus is about to say, but with what he started saying in verse number 19. Jesus says in verse number 25 of the text, he says, for this reason. It's what we call an elbow in the text. It's pointing us really back up and tying this down to what's about to be said. He says, for this reason, I say to you, do not be worried about your life. Listen, I gotta hurry up and slow down. I need to tell you that the word here for worried in this context carries the idea of being distracted and having a divided mind. It carries the idea of being troubled with cares, obsessively seeking to advance one's own interest and cares. It invokes the image of having a heart that is separated into parts or cut into pieces. Now, to be fair, Jewish people in Jesus' day, and we understand that Jesus is speaking to a Jewish audience here, primarily. We understand that the Jewish people in Jesus' day had plenty of opportunity and reason to worry. Under the economically oppressive, the socially suppressive, and religiously repressive realities of life under Roman rule. They had a whole lot to be depressed and experience anxiety about in earthly terms. And so there is no question that this verse acknowledges it is reflective of life as a Jew under the regime of the Roman government. This statement, do not worry, is Jesus acknowledging the fact that there are plenty of things working against them. There are a number of reasons to be anxious by man's and by human standards. But to that, he says, do not worry. In the simplest of terms, in the face of all of that, Jesus says, don't worry. If I could add to that, Jesus is really saying, don't worry about the wrong things. He's really not saying don't worry, period. As much as he's saying don't worry about the wrong things. Don't become so fixated on the issues facing you that they become hindrances, that they become distractions, that they begin to draw you away and draw your attention away from the things of God that I'm trying to teach you. Don't let these things, don't let this stuff, don't let these temporary circumstances that won't amount to much at the end of the day get in the way of the truth and the blessing and the prosperity that I've come to give and I've come to share. Don't allow yourself to be carried away. And so as I cut across the field, the truth is we worry about the little stuff that means little in the end. I mean, come on, somebody, come on. I'm telling you, listen, if you're anything like me, you spend a good amount of time these last few weeks worrying. Come on, we might as well talk real here. I'm in the number. You're in good company. Come on, we spent a good amount of time worrying about some stuff that's going to be over. We spend time worrying about the curve. not realizing that a curve has an incline and a curve has a deep. At some point, you get past the curve. But listen, if I have a little more time, I think I'm going to talk about this in another sermon or two. But if you're not careful, you'll worry so much about dying of corona that you'll die from worrying about corona. Y'all ain't talking about that. Come on. If you're not careful, you'll miss the opportunity. You'll miss the blessings of God. You'll miss the time, the use of the time that God is giving you.
Yes, sir. Talk, sir.
Worrying about something that is coming, but is also going to go. And the preaching point here is that when we worry, we divide and we separate ourselves from the purpose and the power of God when we become so consumed with earthly gain that we obsess over them instead of looking to Him. Come on, let me encourage you to not become so obsessed with stuff that you obsess over them and overlook Him. So Jesus comes along. That's the message He's trying to help them understand. And He just says, flat-footed, don't worry. Don't freak out. Focus in. When faced with things that introduce anxiety into your life, don't gravitate toward your fear. Get grounded in your faith. So when we face trial and adversity in life, it's not just a matter of avoiding the worry. It's a matter of actively pursuing faith. Jesus is not just saying, stop, don't worry. He's also saying, pursue faith. And so I want to encourage you as we prepare to close, that when you find yourself freaking out, focus in. Don't become overcome by worry and overlook God in the process. Don't just gravitate away from fear. Pursue your faith in the Lord. Listen, as I close, I'll leave you with this idea. Someone has suggested that anxiety, that worry operates the same way that sugar operates in your gas tank. It mixes, you know what sugar does in your gas tank. It mixes with the fuel. It does not replace the fuel. It mixes with the fuel. But the result is when that sugar and that fuel gets into your engine, it seizes your engine. It keeps your engine from operating the way it's designed to operate. I said it clogs your engine. It renders your engine ineffective. And watch this. It eliminates the potential of forward progress.